Thank you all so much for carving out a little time of your very busy lives to be here with us, not only this morning, but also making space in your workplace to take on young people to help expose them to all the amazing things that you do. So just really a deep, deep appreciation. Um, you're here today for a Path to Purpose Supervisor Orientation put on by CTE Foundation, the Career Technical Education Foundation, in deep partnership with SCO, the Sonoma County Office of Education, as well as many of the other amazing Chamber of Commerce, county government, and lots of you all and your businesses. So just deep, deep appreciation for that. My name is Eli Weinsweg, and I'm the current executive director of the Career Technical Education Foundation. And it's a real pleasure to be able to be here with you all today. If you go to the next slide, just a little bit about who we are, if you weren't already familiar. Our mission is to innovate the education to career experience and strengthen student success. And this happens through convenings where we bring industry together with education. This happens through supporting our schools through funding opportunities. That happens through the work like we're doing today, bringing interns in and really helping young people figure out what's next in their life. And so through all of that work, we are collaborating with industry, with our education partners to really continue to make Sonoma County the greatest place on earth, not only for us as adults, but most importantly for the young people who are growing up here, who we want to have a future in this community. So I'm gonna say it again, but thank you. This is not an easy thing that you're all doing, and it's so important for our future. So you are all part of this mission to innovate the career experience. We have an amazing team at the Career Technical Education Foundation. One of our team members, Leslie Simmons, our Vice President of Impact Investments, is not feeling so great today. So I'm introducing her on behalf of us. There's a lovely photo of her there. And Leslie's been part of the team for many, many years and has really been part of the driving force behind the creation of Path to Purpose, as well as many of the other programs that we've had happening within the organization. I'm going to pass it off to Brandon, who's been instrumental in creating many of this work as well. So, Brandon, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And should shout out Jolene here too, our student success advisor, who you will hear from a little bit later. So we wanted to give you the way this is this orientation is going to look today is we're going to give you an overview of what Path to Purpose is, what to expect from it, not only from the program and all the partners involved, but what to expect from the youth that you're taking in as interns. And honestly, what they and us and everyone else is going to expect of you as the supervisors taking them on. But to kind of take a step back, I wanted to give you a real quick history of why we created this program. Sonoma County has never really had like this county-wide internship program that any high school student can apply through. There's been multiple other internship-based programs, but nothing so just openly county-wide that works with every high school and every school district. And CTE Foundation and Sonoma County Office of Ed have for years just been thinking, gosh, if there was only a way to give high school students what is commonly seen as one of the highest quality career-connected learning experiences possible as an internship, if there's only a way that we could equitably offer that throughout the county. But the lift just seemed too high, the amount of partners we'd have to get involved, the amount of schools and districts we'd have to work with, the amount of employers we'd have to bring on, it just seemed too insurmountable. But eventually we just said, you know what, we just got to do it. And we did. And it took a long time to build this program. We brought a lot of employer partners and youth serving organizations together to help kind of advise on what this should look like. And what we ended up creating was Path to Purpose. And it is a program that is providing equitable access to all high school juniors and seniors in a streamlined internship opportunity. And I say streamlined, meaning from everybody's perspective in the sense of whether you're a student, whether you're a teacher trying to get your your kid into an internship, or whether you're an employer who wants to take one on. Um, the thing that we really realized we have to do in order to make this an attractive program for everyone is that CTE Foundation and Sonoma County Office of Ed, we have to take the heavy lifting. And so what that looks like, and I'll get into this a little bit more detail later, but that we did the application, we did the vetting of all the students, we interviewed every applicant. Um, we made placements based on not only their interests, but their schedule, their geographic location in proximity to wherever that internship might be. Do they have a driver's license? So we looked at all of that and sort of made this promise to the employers and to the students and to the schools that we would do our best to place interns into as best fit opportunity as we possibly could. Um, and then, that internship would take place during the spring semester, and it would be about 40, minimum 40 hours is what we're looking at. Um, I should also say, before I move on to the timeline, we didn't know, this is our pilot year. We did not know what kind of interest we would see from the students. So we just went out, pushed it out to the schools and the students while also doing a lot of recruiting for the employers. And we set our early goal with the Sonoma County Office of Ed at like, hopefully we can get 25 applicants and we can place 25 kids into, let's put our goal at 25 internship opportunities. Well, we had 249 applicants. So we kind of blew our just kind of goal out of the water as far as the applicants. And we worked with a lot more employers. However, we did not have enough internship opportunities for every student. And so we placed about 100 students into internships so far this year. Now, timeline-wise, what this looks like is that application and interview and vetting process and even placement process all happens within their fall semester. So between September and November is where they're submitting their applications. They also have to submit a resume and a cover letter and a letter of recommendation. December was when our teams were meeting every day, trying to on an individual basis place these students with the best possible opportunity. And we made those connections to all of the employers in December. And so you all should have received an email saying, hey, here is a connection email to your interns. And those were specific to which departments and everything. If a employer might be taking on multiple interns in different departments. And then our goal is that the internships will begin in January or February, sometime in there. And I know we've got some folks on today that won't start is until May. And that's okay. We just want to make sure that in the end, the student gets 40 hours of an internship. So try to work that out when you make a connection. And I hope that you all have made connections with your interns by now, but start to discuss what their schedule looks like in relation to their school and whatever else they might have, and of course your availability. But the goal would be no matter when they start and no matter when they end, to get 40 hours minimum. And we'll explain why a little bit later. We'll go into detail, but in summary, it's because they're getting early college credit from the junior college, and that's the minimum number of hours they need. And then their internship will go through to the end of their semester, and we say April to May, even though most of the semesters actually end in the beginning, like first or second week of June. They've got finals and things like that. So we want to make sure that it doesn't go all the way through there. So second or third week of May would be that kind of like perfect kind of final time to end the internship. I also want to say, I don't know if we said at the beginning, please feel free if you have a question. We're going to have space for questions later, but if you have a question along the way in relation to something that we're talking about at this very moment, feel free to just put it on the chat. We've got 3 staff here from CTE Foundation, and we all said, hey, whoever's not talking at that time is watching the chat. Oh, we have 4?
We do. We have
Um,
four. Malloy, our marketing and communications
oh,
human being, is with us as well. So thank you for being here, Malloy. I see you down there. Hi.
but
Good
that's
morning.
cheating because he's here as a supervisor because CTE Foundation is also taking on 2 interns. So.
I'm trying to get insider tips.
So in this program, in the Path to Purpose program, CT Foundation is sort of your go-to folks. We're your intermediary, and we get a lot of support from Sonoma County Office of Ed in that role. But we are the bridge between the school sites, the employers, and the students. As I mentioned earlier, we manage the application and placement process. We recruit and vet and interview each of the students, as well as there's not a single employer that has not had a conversation with one of us in depth about what an internship would look like. So we do that same vetting and recruiting for the employers. But we're also really here to coach and support all the parties involved, meaning even if a supervisor or an employer had a question about, hey, what can I legally have them do if they are, say, an unpaid? Like we can help with that. We're not lawyers, so it's not legal advice, but we have done a lot of that research and we can kind of help support with some of those questions that you might have along the way. And another thing that we do is we will help facilitate background checks, and I'm sure everybody on this is tired of getting live scan background checked emails from me. But that's a very important piece by law. Anybody who works with youth has to have a live scan. Well, I shouldn't say anyone who's supervising a youth intern has to have a live scan background check. That is a Department of Justice. That is the only Department of Justice one that is allowed to kind of cover this sort of thing. So CT Foundation has done what we need to do to become a custodian of record, meaning that instead of where an employer would normally have to say you were taking a student from Annalee High School in Sebastopol and you're taking one from Santa Rosa High in Santa Rosa, normally you would have to get live scanned twice for each district because there's not really sharing agreements among those districts. What we decided to do was for Path to Purpose, we would become the custodian of records, which means no matter where that student is coming from, you can get one live scan and you're covered. And the great thing is that we've got agreements with all those districts saying that we will do that. And then we kind of have communications agreements. So we're, again, in our effort to simplify the process, that is a big step that we've taken to kind of simplify that live scan situation for you all.
Brandon, there is a question in the chat. Oh, and then there's another one. Oh, look, they're all popping up. I love this. The first question is, what is my responsibility to follow up on an intern schedule or hours? I've connected and they have given me the days and times that she thinks she can make it work, but I have not heard any follow-up. Do I need to monitor anything related to the hours expectation CTE has for her as an intern?
What I would say is if there's like, first of all, like we're not going to be the ones to kind of get into the weeds of scheduling what works for the organization and what works for the student at the same time. So we're hoping that the supervisor and the intern can work that out. And then just kind of map it out throughout this semester through May to just make sure that they can knock out that 40 hours. However, if there's an issue where it's not going to map out, the schedule won't map out, like, or maybe when we asked when we met with them in the fall, what's your schedule like? And maybe things have changed, right? And so maybe they're a lot more limited now. Or maybe they're just not getting back to you. Please reach out to us. As that kind of constant support for employers, we're happy to be that intermediary. Jolene here, who you'll hear from later, is our student success advisor. And her role is really as a one-on-one connector with all of those interns. So she's there to kind of support them in a much more personalized way. She's the kind of person who will be like, all right, they're not answering emails, I'm going to text them. And so we're happy to kind of jump in. We would rather, and we're going to say this a little bit later, but we'd rather know of any minor issues now before they become major issues, because we want to help, fix whatever problems arise. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you, Brandon. And there are two more questions that are kind of the same thing, which is, I've been live scanned before. Do I have to do it again?
Yeah, sorry. Um, so the way that live scans work is that and this is why I was kind of mentioning different districts. You might have to get, without CTE Foundation as the intermediary, who is also a custodian of records, you'll need somebody at that entity to have access to those records. The records don't show much besides the name, the last four of the social, and it tells us if there's an issue, they call it a hit, with a DOJ or an FBI scan. But there's got to be somebody who's checking that regularly in case something changes too, on somebody's record. And the unfortunate thing is it's not a common practice to share those. In fact, I don't know if it's even allowed to share those.
It's not.
So yeah, it's not. So unfortunately, in order for the Path to Purpose program as custodian of records, for us to see that, you have to get it scanned with our particular, what's called an ORI number. It's on the form that I send out, and it makes sure that we see all those live scans. The good thing about Path to Purpose is that once you do it, no matter, again, even if you're taking students next year, you're not going to have to necessarily do it again, even if they're from a different district, because we'll be the custodians of that. So the unfortunate answer is yes, you'll have to get live scanned again, even if you've done it previously for, say, your kid's school or something like that. I
And
see we
then
have a lot of questions. Do we want to get to
there's
them
just
now,
one
or?
more follow-up
Okay.
to that, which is if the intern is going to have multiple points of contact within the agency, do you need live scans from everyone or just the supervisor?
Another good question. There is no specification in the law. However, there has been a sort of rule of thumb created by a lot of other nonprofits that we've looked at and done research with. And the way the law states is that anybody who has sort of like this significant amount of time with the intern should be live scanned. Now, if that means their coworkers are with them significantly, they don't necessarily need it because the supervisor is also there. That person is the only one that would need to get live scanned. The only difference is, say you're doing a rotational internship, or maybe let me actually say it just kind of more black and white. First half of the internship is going to be in this one department with this one supervisor, and the next half of the internship is in another department with another supervisor. You would want both of those supervisors to be live scanned. The rule of thumb that we see is if that supervisor is going to be spending 16 or more hours with that intern, without the other supervisor kind of a part of it, they should be live scanned. Again, it is not written in the law. That is just what we've found in sort of a best practice with other nonprofits that do similar things.
So, and that kind of answers MB's question as well. Lily, we will get to your question a little further down as we may answer pieces of that. So we're going to continue. And then if there's other things about live scan, please put it in the chat and we'll get back to it. We're going to continue moving down this. But just want to again center that, we recognize that you all taking time out of your day to go get fingerprinted is also above and beyond, and we're deeply grateful for that. And we are centering our students in the middle of all of this work, and their safety and their experience is paramount. And so, to make sure that we are doing everything to make sure that our young people are in a proper, safe situation where they can learn and grow, it's what's best practices. And so, thank you. And for those of you who haven't been education adjacent, these are one of the hoops that, us in education have to jump through quite often. And it makes sense. If you have a child, you want to make sure your child that goes off to work is with people who they should be safe around. So thank you for this. And it's really to center the student experience and their safety at the middle of this. So thank you.
Great. So moving on, and we'll take more questions later. We also have a section where we'll take questions. So I kind of mentioned the CTE Foundation's role in this. The supervisor's role is kind of similar to what any supervisor's role would be, but in this case, for an internship, it's really focused around that learning experience. So the supervisor's role is to provide hands-on career-connected learning for the intern. I want to clarify that it's okay in certain situations, and we'll talk about this because it changes whether it's paid or unpaid, for-profit or nonprofit, but the intern can do work. They can be an employee if they're like a paid intern. But just try to, as a supervisor, make sure everything is sort of wrapped in this bubble of learning, right? Like what are they learning and gaining from it? Not necessarily what is the organization getting from it. So yeah, day-to-day supervision and mentoring. And one of the key things, and Eli just mentioned this, is to make sure that the students have a safe experience in the internship. And we mean that both in the sense of safety as if they're on the production floor, they should, of course, follow all the same rules, get the same kind of safety kind of guidance and training that one might get if they're an employee, but also safety in the sense as these are youth. And if the supervisor needs to keep an eye on certain situations, meaning like, are you often leaving the supervisor alone with one person? And especially if that one person is not the supervisor who's live scanned, right? So things like that, we just want you to be cognizant of to ensure that there's safety is always top of mind. I mentioned this earlier, but I'll say it again. Communicating with CTE Foundation is paramount in this situation because we want to make sure there are no surprises. There are so many little details with every placement on this, whether it's the intern's schedule changes or they said they were going to get their driver's license in time and they didn't, or whether it's on the employer side who says, hey, we need them to be here at this time and they can't because they say they have sports. What do we do? Like whatever that looks like, from small to big, we want to know about it, just to help you out with it. We'd rather these small issues not turn into big issues later. So let's tackle them while they're small. So I just putting that out there, open communication at all times. And the nice thing about CTE Foundation is we're a small team. So whether you are shooting me an email, Eli an email, Jolene an email, Leslie an email, you could even shoot Malloy an email here. I don't know if you have his email, but we're such a small team, it will get to the right person. We promise it will be taken care of. I'm going to move it over to Jolene, our student success advisor, to talk a little bit more about that intern safety and compliance.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about intern safety and compliance. There is so much sensitivity around this because for the most part, a lot of the interns that you all will be working with are children under the age of 18, and we all really want to be sure that we are placing them in safe environments. Um, so one expectation that we have of you as the supervisor is that you're creating that safe environment for them. And that means that they feel respected, they feel supported, and they feel safe. And so that does mean appropriate communication channels. It's okay if it's normal within your organization to talk over the phone or through text, but making sure it's appropriate and people are reaching out to them with work-related topics. And then professional boundaries, refraining from any behavior that could be perceived as inappropriate. So we definitely ask that you use your best judgment when working with the interns. And so that could mean knowing that if it is 6 p.m. and it's just you and them alone in the office, maybe that's not the best idea. Maybe you should meet one-on-one with them in a coffee shop or something like that where it's public. Um, and if you have any questions about what is appropriate or inappropriate, please feel free to reach out. I'm available and we can talk about this further for more specific kind of case specific questions.
There is a question in the chat that actually may
Mm.
apply to many people in here, which are what are the rules, provisions around driving and or meeting at local offsite events, job fairs, events, etc.?
Yeah, I think in general, we have been saying it's probably not the best idea to drive them. Um, Eli, do you have thoughts on that? I know we're deciding we're not driving.
Yeah, I would say best practice is to not put yourself in a situation where you're in a one-on-one in a car with a young person. If you are going somewhere as a team and it's a group of people traveling to a job site or a job fair, I think that's absolutely appropriate. But not only protecting the young person, but also protecting yourself in cases of liability. Best practice is to not have yourself in a situation in a car alone with a young person. So I would not recommend that. If transportation is a major issue for that young person, that's one of those times where you can reach out to us. We may be able to help problem solve that. And it's also a great opportunity to have a conversation with that intern about transportation as well. If you're traveling as a group, carpooling, totally appropriate. And if you are by yourself, I highly, highly discourage you from putting yourself or that young person in that situation. Yeah. And then, yeah, Mariah, thank you. Yeah, you agreed. Good. Lots of liability issues if you drive a youth in your car and there is an accident. Yes, that is in addition to all the other things. So 100%. Yeah.
All right. And then I did want to touch on a few of these items that are required by law, and they have been outlined in the supervisor agreement. We've talked about it a lot, but I want to go over it really quickly just to make sure there's no misunderstandings. And if you have any questions, we can talk about it. So the first piece is the live scan, and there has been a lot of conversation around that. What that is a background check that is always current. So we get to hold that record. If anything happens with a supervisor, we're alerted of it and we can pull a student if necessary. So that is really important for student safety. Um, I went and did mine yesterday and it was super quick and easy and I paid $35. So it sounds like any trouble we're having with the billing number or had with the billing number is cleared up. So you shouldn't be charged. Yeah, Brandon.
I just want to jump on that because I know there's a little bit of confusion. People are like, why am I paying something if now the billing code's working, why am I still being charged? I just want to clarify that there are two fees involved. There's the Department of Justice and FBI fees that does get billed to us with that billing number that's on that form that I send out. One thing that we the billing number can't cover is the rolling fee. And the rolling fee is charged by whichever organization you go to get the fingerprint background check. That's their time. They had to get certified to do that. So that's a part of their business. So they'll charge anywhere from like 30 to $50. I think some police stations will do it as low as like 20 or 22. And sheriff's office, I think. So that it has to be paid at the counter. What we've been asking is that is, and what a common practice is that is paid by the person the person being fingerprinted will pay that rolling fee, or being reimbursed by the organization or whatever. However, in some cases, if that is a deal breaker, if that can't, you don't want to, or the company can't pay that or anything like that, let us know. We can reimburse for it. So we just want to make it as easy as possible for you. But I just wanted to explain the difference on those two charges. So why Jolene still was charged $35 for the rolling fee for where she went.
Okay. And so that is the live scan background check. Another training that we are asking supervisors to participate in is the mandatory reporter training. Um, we don't need to receive a copy that you completed that, but it is really, really important information for you to know, because now that you are working with youth, you are all mandatory reporters. And what that means is that if a student comes to you and tells you that they have plans to hurt themselves, or they're being hurt at home, or they're going to hurt someone else, um, you are required by law to report that to CPS. Mandatory reporter training goes more into depth about how to navigate those conversations and also make that phone call. But again, if you have any questions about that, please reach out. I definitely recommend the training that we sent out, and then the certificate at the end is just for your records. Same thing with any harassment trainings that are probably required by your place of employment already. Just really emphasizing that it's important that you have those done, but again, we don't need to see that you completed that. We don't need the certificate or anything like that either. Any questions about any of those pieces so far?
I want to as I'm clicking on the chat and I'm seeing Eric, you're the one who asked about the live scan background check in 2021. Do you need to get it again? I just want to point out, Eric, for you won't. And the reason is because we are working with SCO, since SCO is a partner in this, on an agreement, whereas your live scan background checks for SCO, because everybody at SCO is background checked. We're going to have a communication agreement so that whoever is the custodian of record there will make sure that they inform us immediately if anything changes on your background check. We also had the same thing with one of our employers, Series, who's a nonprofit who works with youth a lot. They also do their own background checks in-house, and so we have a communication agreement with them. So in some rare instances, you won't have to. So I just wanted to point that out since I see that it was Eric that asked.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, and then the supervisor agreement, I would say most of you have probably signed this already, and this is just you reading more in depth what I talked about in the last slide, and then agreeing to it, saying that you understand and you will conduct yourself accordingly. There is more information about the three pieces, the live scan mandatory reporter training and the harassment training in there. And so I'm going to actually send a link for the Google form version of the supervisor agreement in the chat. And if you have not completed that already, and you will be a supervisor of an intern, please take some time just to read that through and send it back to me. And then again, if you have any questions about any of this, please reach out. Um, if you have interns that aren't responding to you, please reach out. I can always help with that as well. And then again, if you would like to see information about their application or their resume or anything like that, I can always share that with you as well.
Thank you, Jolene. And NB in the chat just asked, how can other nonprofits get this communication agreement like
Mm.
Series and SCO have?
Yeah. Hi, Marybeth. So if you guys already do that and have an individual who's a custodian of record, then yes, we can talk about it. We've got the whole MOU drafted up and everything, and it's just a matter of changing the organization. But reach out to me separately, maybe after this, and we can work on making that happen. All right. There was a question that I wanted to answer real quick, and I'm trying to see.
There was two questions in there, Brandon, about the applications and resumes, and I figured
Yeah.
we would get to that towards the end, as I think you'll touch on portions of that.
Sure. Okay. So what we'll talk about now real quick is the difference between a paid and an unpaid internship, because there is a legal difference to what the intern can do based on a couple of things. Is it paid or unpaid? And is it for profit or nonprofit? So I'll look at for-profit organizations first. A paid internship at a for-profit organization that person is an employee of the company and can do anything an employee can do. So they can do what is called meaningful, productive work that directly benefits the organization. For a for-profit company, if they're taking somebody on unpaid, they are not allowed to do meaningful work that benefits the company. It has to be solely focused on the learning for the students. So it would be more in tune with like what a job shadow is, than like, like a full-on internship where they're doing some productive work. The only difference though is nonprofits, government entities, and education can take unpaid interns and have them do productive work that benefits the organization, like a nonprofit taking on a volunteer. And so I just want to make sure that is very clear in everybody's mind. You know where you fall in this, and just make sure that you are, especially if you are a for-profit unpaid internship, that you just make sure you don't cross that line too much on having them or cross the line at all. I shouldn't say too much. Don't cross the line at all on having them do meaningful, productive work that kind of really is more benefiting you than them. Not that it's going to make a huge difference to you, but we want you to be informed that work permits are required by law, and there are a couple different forms. Don't worry, you don't have to know the difference really. You just kind of sign whatever the intern brings to you, because whether it's a paid or unpaid internship, there's still a form, and that intern is going to have to go to their school, get that form, they fill it out, their parent fills it out, they bring it to you, and then they bring it back to school. And then they get an actual permit to work or to do a volunteer. The slightly confusing thing is you might have an unpaid internship and you might still get that standard B1-4 form. And don't worry about it. It's fine. Some schools don't use the volunteer one. They only use the work permit, and that's okay. Great. So one of the things that we have as a part of built into this program is a partnership with the Santa Rosa Junior College. And now we don't have a person from the junior college here today to talk about this, but Eli is going to jump in and talk about our partnership with them around a particular work experience course and why that's important and what you should know about it as the employer.
I will put a clause that I am not an SRJC employee. I have heard their presentation a few times, and so I'm going to do my best to go through this. If there are very, very specific questions, we'll do our best to answer them. But we can also direct you towards a few of the folks at the JC who have been supporting us throughout this process. So, like Brandon mentioned, the name of the course is Wee 99I, and it's an opportunity for young people to begin to dip their foot in the pool of higher education and post-secondary world. And for those students who aren't sure about what their future holds, this is maybe the first time that they'll be able to interact with a faculty member from SRJC and really get to see that like they can do this too. And so it's a really fun opportunity for them not only to get exposure, but also earn college credit. And so, regardless of where their future goes, if that's to a 2-year, to a 4-year, to a trade school, or directly to work, they're going to graduate from Path to Purpose with some college credits. And it's a really exciting thing for them to have that opportunity to do. So, if we go to the next slide. Kim Kinahan and Jess Hazelwood are the two incredible SRJC faculty members who've been supporting the program. They are not the faculty members who will be doing the direct service with the students, but again, they're one of those connectors for CTE Foundation to SRJC. And so I would recommend take a screenshot, write their names down. If you have any need in reaching out to the SRJC, these would be the initial people you would reach out to in regards to your intern, and then they will be able to point you in the right direction of the next place that you would need to go. But Kim is the SRJC Work Experience Department Chair, and Jess Hazelwood is a longtime high school counselor in the community and is now working for the SRJC, and so has deep, both of them just really get the student experience and are really student-centered and lovely human beings, and would welcome a phone call or I guess an email because you don't get their phone numbers. So if you have any questions, by all means, do not hesitate to reach out to either Kim or Jess. All right, so some nuance here with the course that students are taking. This course runs from February 2nd to May 15th, and we know that there may be some wiggle room in there about when your intern is starting their program with you, and that's okay. And the SRJC is very aware that every employer work site, every nonprofit, we're all operating a little bit differently, and so there's some flexibility within that. However, students will be working asynchronously with a SRJC faculty member. So they don't actually have to go onto campus all the time for this class, but they'll have an opportunity to do some regular check-ins, and they'll have some work that they'll be completing alongside the work they'll be doing with you all to earn that credit. These credits are transferable to the CSU system, which is incredible. And the one unit includes 15 hours of online coursework, plus that 37 and a half, although thank you, you are all doing 40 hours of that paid or unpaid work completed between February 2nd and May 15th. I know that some of you are starting that internship in May, and that would be one of those questions that I don't have the ability of answering with like 100% validity, but I would imagine the SRJC is aware of some of these nuances, and that may be one of those opportunities that you reach out to Jess or Kim just to make sure that things are falling into place. Brandon, is there anything I'm missing on just the timing of that stuff?
No, you said starting in May, and you think you meant March.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, so I just wanted to clarify. Yeah, if you're starting in May, you're too late. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next slide. So the students are going to be doing their coursework in Canvas. For those of you who are education adjacent, this may be a term that's familiar with you. It's an LMS or learning management system. It's like Google Classroom or Blackboard that some of us may be familiar with from school back in the day. It's just a online portal for students to go on, access their educational components, do some coursework, and interact with their faculty member at SRJC. There are two required in-person meetings with the student's assigned work experience instructor. They will be meeting initially at the beginning of the semester for about 30 minutes to really talk about what they want to get out of the internship. What are your hopes and goals and dreams, and what do you want to come out of that? The student will then participate in the internship. They're going to have an incredible time. They're going to learn a lot. They're going to decide halfway through the internship that they love what they're doing. I'm joking. I don't know, but they're going to have a really robust experience. At the end of their internship, they're going to have a second meeting with that site supervisor and the faculty member. The three of you, in some capacity, are going to be able to sit and talk and really review this progress on what the interns' goals were they set at the beginning of the year and how things have shaken out. So it's an opportunity to just kind of round out this experience. And an opportunity for you all to get to connect with the amazing people at the SRJC and just see that this entire universe of student support extends far beyond the walls of a classroom. And so you're all participating in this. And again, I'm going to say thank you, and we deeply appreciate it. Um, just kind of for fun, here are some of the sample assignments that your student may be participating in when they are in this WEE 99I class. There will be an online orientation and quiz. It's a quiz. It's not really a test or academically quiz. It's more just kind of figuring out who the student is and where they're landing in the world. There'll be some work goals that the students will be completing, some employability skills assessments. They'll be meeting in person, like we talked about. They'll be getting some support with drafting a resume or revising one. And I see if there's questions about the resumes. We're going to get to that, I promise. There'll be a mid-semester check-in. The students will be doing some reporting. They'll be tracking their hours. And then, like we mentioned, they'll be doing that final meeting. And they'll also be having weekly check-ins. There may be asynchronous checking in via email or maybe Zoom or a phone call. That all gets kind of structured and worked out in between the student and the faculty member as they begin those meetings. There's a question, will all of this be shared with us? We are recording this Zoom. Yes, we will share this with you. We will share the slide deck with you, plus look at that, just got answered. Lots of other resources from our website as well. And if you go to our website, and I know someone will drop the link into the chat in just a second, there's an enormous amount of support and resources provided on there too. Oh, will all the info that the students share with SRJC be shared with us? Um, I can't promise that because some of it may be just interpersonal between the faculty member and the student. But the academic portions, the goal setting, yes, that will be shared with you all in some capacity. Yeah, 100%. And I think a huge piece of the process is when the intern is setting their goals, they do need to share this with you so that you, as the employer partner, can kind of see what their hopes and dreams and goals for themselves are. So that is absolutely part of this process. And we encourage you to talk to your student about their experience with SRJC. You know, they're going to be showing up on your work site. You're going to know that they're enrolled in this class. Ask them, yeah, how's it going? What are some of those goals? They may share them with you willingly. You may have to, do some extracting of them depending on the young person who shows up on your doorstep. Okay, so I'm actually, oh, yeah, go for it, Brandon.
I was just going to say, let's dive into some of the questions that we have on the chat.
Yes, and to do that, I was going to end the poll because there are
We
some
never ended it.
questions in that poll as well.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I love that. Wow. Has your workplace ever hosted an intern? More people say yes than no. That's wonderful. That's great.
While I
Um,
pull up the questions from what you want to learn today, Brandon, do you want to go back and answer those questions from Lily and then MB about
yeah,
the resume and interests and all that?
yeah, wonderful question, Lily. Yes, we are happy to share all of that info. We did not make a point to share it with everyone when once placed. And admittingly, some of the student, we made it required for the student to have a resume, a cover letter, and a letter of recommendation. Admittingly, some of the resumes and cover letters are not great, but happy to share that, especially obviously for your intern with you. We're just going to do it on a kind of a if requested, we'll send it to you basis versus putting it individually all together and sending it out. But yeah, happy to do that.
Thank you. I think it's going to help a lot to just get a better understanding of, how proficient are they? Do they know how to manage maybe an Outlook or a general email, which I'm sure a lot of these kids are very tech savvy, but we just want to know what their comfort is as well. Because for our office, it'll be a lot of those hands-on office email, right?
Hmm.
And email etiquette and all of those pieces. So just wanted to get like a baseline for the student, but
Yeah.
we're really excited. Thank you.
And so I've also the funny thing is in our last session we had Debbie and Adriana from the county asking the exact same question that you're asking, which I think is funny. And then they emailed me, and I specifically not only sent them the resume, the cover letter, letter of recommendation, but I also included some key parts to our notes that maybe weren't in the resume or cover letter, but things that we pulled out in our interview about, say, their interests or skill sets or something like that. Happy to do that again. Just by
That
request. Yeah.
that would be great. And I know another question that our team would like to know is how does the CTE match the student with us? Like a little more insight around that. Specifically, Supervisor Corsi is very keen, of what are their interests, or
Yeah,
who is this individual? But it's all good stuff. We just want to know more. We're eager to know more about them.
totally.
Thank you.
Yeah, we really, really tried to we built a sort of some questions and a rubric that allowed us to dive into multiple pieces that we knew would be important when placing a student. So, are you familiar with the Portrait of a Graduate, Sonoma County Portrait of a Graduate?
Not as familiar. I've heard
Okay,
of
no
it, but
worries.
not.
Not
Yeah.
not super important, but um, it's a I have a poster right up here. So it's basically like the community, the business community, the education community, the entire community got together. We have thousands of survey results about what people think are important for students to have when they graduate. And we actually utilized that as sort of a basis to some of our questions. It asks about, or I should say, the Portrait of a Graduate says that students to be successful upon graduation should have curiosity, empathy, communication, collaboration, ethics, and initiative. And there's some details with all those I won't go into. But so we asked questions that dove into all of that, and then scored based on that. But we also did ask questions like, what does your schedule look like? Just simply like, what are your interests? What do you want to do? So when it all comes down to it, the way we looked at it is we have this very detailed spreadsheet that not only has the scores, we always had two people interviewing every single applicant, and that's a lot of interviews, half-hour interviews. Um, but we've got notes from both interviewers. We've got notes about their schedule and their availability. And what we did was we looked at that resume, cover letter, and said, okay, this student is interested in, say, politics
Mm,
or government or whatever it may be that kind of triggered us to think it might be good. And we go, they would be great for maybe a county role or something similar. And then we'll look at what your needs are based on the job description for the hours. And then
mhm,
we'll see if it possibly works for them. So for example, if you were closing your doors at 5 p.m. and that student said, I'm out at 3:35, they obviously couldn't make it to an internship until 4 p.m., right?
mhm,
It wouldn't really be the best fit to fit somebody who's out at 3:35, going to make it to the internship at 4 p.m. when the office closes at 5 p.m. It's
mm.
possible they can do that every day and get 5 hours a week and totally meet the criteria. But we really tried to see, okay, well, maybe this student has a free period at the end of the day on Wednesdays and Fridays, which would allow them to knock out 2 to 2.5 hours on those days, right? And then maybe that's how they get the 5 hours in a week. So and
Perfect.
we were looking at a lot of those things, but we also were like, okay, where is your office and where is this student coming from? Not only where do they go to school, but where do they live? And do they have a driver's license? And if they don't, when are they getting it? Those are all notes that we have and questions that we asked. And our goal was really to make it so that the employers would be confident in knowing that even though they weren't there at the table interviewing these students, which we would never ask you to do, you don't want to do that, trust me, um, that you would have the confidence in knowing that we were doing the best we could to place you with a student that fit.
Thank you so much. That is a lot of work that you all have put together. So we really appreciate that.
It was
All
a
right.
pretty
Thanks.
huge lift between the teams at SCO and CTE Foundation. I don't know if I heard this in the beginning, but they interviewed over 230 students and placed over about 100 of them in internships throughout the county. Um, it was an enormous lift, and I would say that a majority of the students who were placed are seniors, and we prioritize them because we want them to have this experience before they graduate. And so the hope is that, and we know there's a need for this work. Clearly, in the initial year of this being opened up, getting that many applications was like, whoa, this has to continue. And so we anticipate continuing to refine this system over this next year. And we're actually really excited to hear from all of you and get your feedback for this process because we want this to be the most robust and incredible experience for these young people. And so please, you'll have very structured opportunities to provide feedback throughout the year from surveys that we'll send out and feedback forms. But don't hesitate to reach out to myself, Leslie, Brandon, Jolene, hi Malloy too. Any of us, like Brandon mentioned, we have a small team. We want your experience and the experience of the student to be incredible. And so if there's things that we can continue to do to refine that, or if you run into something where you're like, that was kind of strange. It could have been better if the X, Y, and Z had happened 2 months ago. We want to know about that. You are not going to hurt our feelings. At the end of the day, we know that we built this, it's going to be incredible, and it's going to need to be refined as well. And so don't hesitate to reach out in any way. We really want this to be a great experience for you and for our young people.
Thank you for that. We will
And it's a
definitely
pilot.
do make sure to keep the communication open with you all.
Yep.
And Lily, just for your unique situation at the county, because the county's got multiple departments, multiple supervisors, 4 of the 5 supervisors are taking interns. Um, per the instructions of Adriana Call from HR, right? We're kind of going to her for most of that communication, and she should be disseminating that to you. So you are in a unique situation where you're not hearing from me as much as everybody else, and that is by design, based on what the county was looking for. So I just want to put that out
Wonderful.
there in case you're wondering why you're like not hearing from us.
We have been hearing from her. She's been great. So thank you.
Great.
I'm
Uh,
looking in the chat. I'm not seeing any other questions.
Anybody can come off mute and ask a question at any time as well.
Yeah.
So I should say, what we're going to do after this is get into what you're going to expect from what you should expect from the intern and how to prepare, and then we're going to do an activity. And so this is sort of a mid orientation time for questions on the program piece itself. Hours per week. Uh, David, the question is there a minimum number of hours per week we need to target for the interns? I would say no. Um, I would just kind of try to map it out to make sure that they hit the 40 hours by whenever you end the internship, you know, sometime in May. Um, you could do 0 hours one week and 10 hours the next, or you can do 3 hours, 5 hours. Uh, I would also say in some situations, a student's um, spring break is a great time to knock out a good number of hours. We're doing that with our intern. Our intern has pretty limited availability. One of our interns has pretty limited availability. And we are going to probably knock out, 15 to 20 hours. I'm not sure. Malloy's leading that, but during her spring break, just to make sure that we can really utilize her at that time. So there's a lot of flexibility and ways to do it. A lot of folks have weekend work, and most students are available those weekends. So
Mary Beth had a question.
Yeah, we have a couple opportunities that we're interested in to help our interns reach their 40 hours creatively because their schedules also are a little different than ours. And some of them are very relevant to the work we're doing, but would put them outside of the direct supervisor world. Like, for example, there's a regenerative agriculture class at a farm. We've worked with that farm a bunch. We take field trips to that farm, so we know them well. But I'm not sure I wouldn't, or one of our supervisors would necessarily go to the class with them because then we're paying our supervisors to work, and so it's costing us a lot of money plus the tuition for the class. Can we send interns to opportunities that will educate them? We're paying for it, but our organization isn't necessarily directly with them. There's lots of different ways we've thought like, oh, they could go here and here and here. So yeah, what are your
yeah,
guidelines on that?
I actually like that creative thinking. Again, this is a career connected experience, but it's a career connected learning experience with emphasis on learning, right? So, um, if that is something that you think is valuable to them in that career connected learning experience, then yeah, like let's count it. Count it as the hours. I think that's a great idea, especially if you're almost like you say, dealing with a lot of because you're taking on several students, right? And they're going to have different schedules. And so,
We have two through your
two.
program and then three who just came to us not through your program. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
professional development. That's an incredible opportunity to showcase how we as adults continue our own learning. And that I think that's a wonderful opportunity for them. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and then I'm thrilled to hear that because I feel like these courses that we want to provide for them offer deeper expertise than what we have in-house. So I might attend the course as a student, but also I might not. So okay, so if we do that, like myself and the other intern supervisor would be the main supervisor. Like we'd be providing the bulk of the hours. So it's not like we're passing the supervising off to someone else. So the teacher of that course, do they need the live scan and fingerprinting and everything? Okay, if it's like a one-off here or there,
I
we're
mean,
not.
I don't think their class is going to be 16 hours, right?
No, it'd
Yeah,
be a
remember
couple
that's
hours here.
that threshold, that 16-hour threshold. So if it's below 16 hours, there's no need for that. If you're spending more than that 16 hours, that's where that fingerprinting is coming in.
Awesome.
And
Okay,
again,
thanks.
that is not by law. That is just a rule of thumb.
Okay,
Best
perfect.
practice.
Thank you.
Great question.
There are so many laws, especially in the state of California, protecting young people. They are by far the most protected class. And so we have digested all of these laws, which are, being created year after year after year, and they're wonderful. However, they can be prohibitive. And so one of the reasons why you don't see these internship programs happening statewide all over the place is because it's really difficult as you're hearing all of the hoops that we've had to jump through. And so we've put together these structures that make sure that we're following the law and also are interpreting certain things to make sure it's accessible for the student and for the employer as well. So everyone is following the law. We're not breaking any rules, and we are interpreting things in a way that make it so that life can continue. We've had our attorneys look at this. We are good to go.
Do we have any other questions? I don't see any, or is there some in the chat that we didn't
Oh, we got to all of them.
address? We did. Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, we can move on. So I want to dive into what to expect of the students, because us in business have preconceived notions about what an entry-level person, even with no experience, might come as far as skill sets. And I want to just kind of make sure that we level set on those expectations, because even these students may not even be necessarily at that entry level yet. And also, especially this younger generation, there's a lot of folks who maybe haven't, like Mary Beth, I know you work with youth all the time and are used to this, but a lot of others might not be. But the youth, they do work and communicate in different ways. And so what we're going to do is talk about what to expect and how to prepare, and then we'll do an activity focusing on like different scenarios. What if the student came in doing this or saying this? What might be the explanation to that, and how do you turn it into a learning opportunity? So around what to expect for students, they do have different communication styles. Anybody with kids probably knows this, but whereas the business world is often doing email is not by any means the main form of communication for these Gen Zers. They often don't answer phone calls. And I know that a lot of us are probably thinking, well, they should, because that's the way the professional world works. And I agree, but they're not in the professional world yet, and they need to be taught by the professional world how the professional world communicates. So until then, have a little bit of a leeway and just know that, yeah, they do just, they might take a while to respond to an email, or they might respond better via text. So just something to think about there. They have little or no experience with workplace norms. So when and how to email versus like our organization uses Teams a lot. And so it's simple to us. It's almost like we feel like it was a natural fit to know if I just have a real quick message, I'll ping them on Microsoft Teams versus sending an email and waiting for a response. They might not know that. And your company might work different than the way CTE Foundation works. So make sure that you're working with them on the workplace norms in your workplace. Something like as simple as reply versus reply all. You don't want that embarrassing moment where they press reply all and they didn't know they did that, right? So how to set up the camera for a Zoom meeting. They're used to the way school did it during COVID, and that's different. When, if ever, is it okay to wear headphones, right? Like we have the ability in our office, if we're on our computer working, it's okay to have some headphones in, but in some places, well, a lot of places that wouldn't be okay, right? So make sure you're communicating those norms there. And if you see something like with headphones, it's just an opportunity to talk to them about it. And they also don't have very much experience with the core workplace tools that we're used to. There's a great story from CTE Foundation where several years ago we had an intern, and I don't remember who, but one of us was saying something like, "Hey, why don't you just send a calendar invite for that?" And put them on their computer with Outlook, and they have never used Outlook, and they're like, I have no idea how to do that. And so don't expect them to be super ready on the workplace tools like spreadsheets, calendars, a file organization system or a CRM. They're going to have to be taught that. And recognizing that it's limited hours, I would focus on, if you're going to teach them those things, teach them on the ones that you think are really important. No need to spend 15, 20 hours teaching them a CRM that they're probably not going to use, very often going forward. And then also, what to expect is possibly some transportation challenges and scheduling challenges, because they're all going to school. They're all juniors or seniors. And so that means there's always that chunk in the day where they are not available. But a lot of those students do maybe have a free period or something, and that opens up flexibility. So talk to them about that and how that works with the days and times you're scheduling them. But also consider transportation and talk to them about that too, because maybe they drive, maybe they don't, and maybe they say, "Oh, it's not a problem. My mom will take me." But just make sure that communication is happening, to make sure be like, "Okay, cool. So your mom is off at that time to pick you up from school and then bring you over here." So just communication is key in those situations. How to prepare. First thing is lead with patience and clarity. Assume positive intent. And I'm going to use the headphones again as an example, but like, don't just assume that they're, trying to be disconnected. Just know that maybe where they come from in school, that was okay. Some of the teachers, oddly enough, let that happen. So assume that they're there with positive intent and want to make a good impression. Do consider the fact that these students had to go through an application process, had to submit a resume, cover letter, and get a letter of recommendation from an adult, and had to go through an interview process, and lots of communication with CTE Foundation and Sonoma County Office of Ed. So they didn't just fall into this, they worked for it. So assume that they really want it and they want this experience. Establish communication methods early, preferably around what works best for them and what works best for you. Over communicate those expectations, reiterating as many times as you need to, and set clear goals and expectations. Check in regularly about how things are going. Make sure that that like the feedback and that support is regular and constant. And try to treat the mistakes like they're learning opportunities. So if they don't do this thing on time, it's not a, "Hey, what the heck? I told you to send that to me." It's a, "What happened? Let's talk about it." And maybe it's just like, "You told me to send it, but I don't understand the program that you told me to send it through." So yeah, teach the basics explicitly. Don't assume they have prior knowledge, as I mentioned earlier. Build in flexibility to whatever they're doing, both on the schedule side, but also just in your expectations about what the final product might look like. And very important, make sure that you're trying your best to foster an inclusive environment that again is flexible, but also maybe culturally sensitive, and open to different perspectives and literally a different generational perspective. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is we're going to do an activity, and I'm going to run you through an example first. But right now, is that you, Eli, putting those in there? Are throwing in some questions. Don't look at the questions now. You'll do it later. But what we're going to do is we're going to break out into 5 breakout rooms. And I'm going to give you a scenario, and in your group, I'm going to have you discuss what assumptions might be easy to make in this situation, given that scenario. Like I said, they didn't turn in the thing on time. What are the assumptions you might make? But what are some possible explanations that assume that positive intent from that intern? What workplace norms and skills might need to be explicitly taught? And how could you address this in a supportive, learning-focused way? So I'm going to give you an example. So during virtual team meetings, your intern stays quiet and has their camera angled upward so that you only see the top of their head like this, like a forehead. If you've ever done a Zoom with youth, thank you, Eli, for demonstrating. That is what a lot of them look like. It's kind of interesting how that is like what the generation kind of does. The assumptions you might make is that an intern is disengaged or not paying attention, that they don't care about the meeting, that they're being unprofessional and they're not taking it seriously, or that they're just intentionally avoiding participating in this meeting. But some possible explanations, if you kind of think about it from a different perspective, is maybe they don't know expectations for camera setup in professional meetings. They are unfamiliar with the virtual meeting norms. They're used to what their school allows them to do, especially when you think about school during COVID, which is probably where a majority of that Zoom experience comes from. And maybe then it was normal. Maybe then the teacher just said, you just need to be on camera. And they said, well, then I'm going to turn it up to here so you can see I'm here, but you're not going to see my full face. And honestly, a lot of the teachers that was okay for them. Maybe they feel nervous. And then also think about what their home life might look like. When they are angled upwards, they're showing that they're there, but they're not showing the room behind them. Maybe they have a messy apartment they live in. Maybe they have siblings that are running back and forth or playing in the background, and they don't want to look unprofessional, and they think this is the better alternative. So when it comes to like what workplace norms might be explicitly taught, well, professional virtual meeting etiquette, appropriate camera positioning, being visible and attentive, and how that helps build trust and connection in a team setting, and that it's encouraged to ask questions and contribute. And how could you address this in a supportive, learning focused way? Have a private check-in with them. And I say private because maybe you don't do it like explicitly during that meeting and saying, hey, why are you not fully on camera? Lower your camera. Maybe you kind of talk to them afterwards so that they don't feel like they're embarrassed. Reassure them that participation is not a test, that this is just a learning skill. And then you could offer concrete strategies, such as preparing one question or comment ahead of meetings to make sure that they feel like more comfortable to engage. And then model that behavior by showing or explaining what good participation looks like in your organization. So those are just, you do not have to in this build up, bullet points like this. This is just as an example. You don't even need to, in your breakouts, touch on every piece of this. We just wanted to give you these as your sort of what to think about when discussing this in your group forum. Okay. So Eli, do you got everybody separated into groups now? Yeah?
I do. We are ready to go. You want me to open the rooms?
Yeah. Do we have any questions from anyone before we break out into groups? Great. Yeah, let's just break it out into groups. And we'll probably pop in and out of some different rooms just to see how things are going. And you're going to have 10 minutes to talk about 2 different scenarios in your group.
Later.
All right. So what we want to do now is just kind of open it up and we'll go through groups 1 through 4. And we would love to hear from the people in that group what scenarios you had, and just some of the key takeaways from your discussion. We're thinking probably just a minute to a minute and a half per scenario. Love to hear from you. So group 1, who was in group 1?
I was
Angela?
in group 1.
Yeah.
Let me get my screen on. So our first scenario was no response to a schedule change. So you've emailed your intern and you're asking them to adjust their schedule, and 2 days have passed and you haven't heard a response. And so a couple things that we talked about were that many of the students in this program are overachievers. That I'm using that word, not the word that the group used, but they are committing to a lot of extracurricular and curricular activities. And so the busyness of their lives may be causing some overscheduling issues. It could be that the way that you're communicating with them might not be their primary mode of communication. And so finding out what pathway that is and trying to reach them maybe by phone or by text or by email. If they have multiple emails, making sure that all of the emails are getting the information because they might be just checking one box or another box less regularly. And just then, once you do and are able to connect with them, to make sure that there's like a clarification conversation there of like, what's the best mode of communication and what's the expectation for a response time. And then our second was a delayed team email. So you've asked your intern to send a brief email update, and several hours later, the email still has not been sent. So again, just making sure that you check back in and make sure that as the director of the task, that your expectations have been set forth clear from the beginning, and maybe like, what does the benchmark look like? And then what is paint done? What does the end product look like? Because oftentimes if the product that we receive is not what we're expecting, it's probably on our end as the adult explaining it to the person that we're hoping to do the task, that maybe it wasn't clear enough. So, yep.
I would also add for the last one is depending on where they are in their internship, but maybe they don't know how to send an email to multiple people. Or, here we have in at CTE Foundation, when we want to send something to all staff, we don't individually put everyone. We have a CTE all staff listserv thing that we can put in that sends, right? So if that's not explicitly taught and we say send something to all staff, that intern might not know how. So,
Yep.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anything else from group one before we move to group two? Thank you. Group two, Eric, Haley, Jessica. Wait, group one only had a couple of people drop or something. Eric, Haley, Jessica, Iriana, and Steven.
I can start, but if someone wants to jump in, go for it. So we tied this, we talked through the repeated late arrivals, and one of the assumptions maybe being that the student might be unreliable or unprofessional or just not very organized. But Yuriana brought up a really great point, which is that, this student could be potentially reliant upon transportation from a family member. And we talked about the idea that the student may not have control over their arrival time, and we're near a SMART station, for example. So I thought, well, if they take SMART and the train gets them there at a set time that consistently has them 10 minutes late, there's not a lot they can do about that. And so we talked about, the importance of modeling clear communications. And, one of the things that came up was establishing expectations for communicating if you're going to be late. And then, if it's a structural thing, maybe make some adjustments with the workday, such as not scheduling meetings for that first 15 minutes or so that you're not regularly having to explain their late behavior. And then just kind of meeting the student where they are and saying punctuality is really important in a professional setting, but also, when you're an adult, you'll have more control over your circumstances, and really being able to kind of talk through those things. And in general, we just talked about how the approach for all of these issues is to kind of lead with the idea of inquiry first, instead of just making assumptions, and always just starting off with questions like, I noticed this, but did you notice it also? And, is there a reason for that? Or is there an issue that we can help with? Can we talk through this a little bit, as opposed to just like, you were late, it can't happen again, or whatever. Does someone else want to take the no progress after instructions?
If I could just add one thing to that, I would also add, there's a communicate, like, what does the communication look like if you are late for whatever reason, right? Because if they're just showing up late, it's different than if they called you and said, I'm trying to get there, but my mom got off work late. That there's a little bit of a different difference there. And so there's also that teachable moment of communication of if this has to be the case, you have to communicate.
Mhm. Yeah. Does someone else want to take the second example?
Uh,
I can
I
keep.
was going to say, I
Oh,
can say
oh
something
yeah. Go ahead,
about,
Jessica, if you want.
okay, I could say something just so Eric's not in the spotlight the whole time. Um, we just said again not to start with any assumptions. And, the second example was, if I can find it, it was that they've had no progress, right? We gave them an assignment. They said they had no questions, but then we haven't seen any progress. And, we just discussed again, not starting with assumptions, but sitting down and checking in and, asking them to share what they've been doing or what they've been working on, and then offering some ideas like suggesting ways they might ask for help if they needed it. Like, maybe you can text me if you have a question while you're doing something, right? Finding a communication option that they're comfortable with. We talked about also like understanding that perhaps they're just because we haven't seen progress doesn't mean they didn't make progress. So possibly they had a different work style or they jotted something down on paper instead of using the Excel spreadsheet we wanted, so then making sure that we share that, a work norm might be to check in with us or ask a question at this time and show them what we want to see, like give a sample or an example. And then we also talked about breaking down the task. So perhaps, we just want to see a smaller chunk of it. Here's a large task, but let's break it down into three different smaller things that we can check back in about. So maybe someone else from the group wants to add more, but
Cool. All
okay.
right, we'll move on. Thank you. That was great. Group three. Anyone from group three that wants to jump in? Joan, Lisa. Sure who Vcuz is. Anyone?
I can kind of start us out. This is Lisa. We did talk through some of the assumptions, but I think our primary focus for this one around the missed deadline without communication was that there could be some different communication styles, fear, um, about communicating where they're at, or maybe there's a lack of understanding about the assignment. And so not comfortable kind of reaching out and asking for assistance. So kind of understanding that as a context, I think would be helpful. The other thing we've talked about is in our group was around learning opportunities for missed deadlines and or opportunities just to gain additional clarity and walk through things. Deadlines can be flexible sometimes, so making an awareness to the intern too that it doesn't necessarily mean there's a problem, and that maybe we could work through that and be a little bit more flexible on the timeline as well if there's clear communication along the way. So I think just creating that safe space like you were all talking about before too, to ensure that there's clear and transparent communication for tasks that are assigned was really a focus of our conversation for that one. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in on that. Okay.
How about the headphones at the desk one? Do you want to talk about that?
Sure, I can mention we didn't actually we focused more on the first one, I would say.
Okay.
Um, but just given the limited amount of time that we're anticipating this person being on site, I don't know, like from my perspective, I'm not sure if it's problematic necessarily. It just depends, I think, on the context and what we're referring to. So, um, if there's obviously a team meeting happening and somebody has their headphones in, it might limit their ability to hear what everybody's saying and be engaged in the conversation. So maybe that's an opportunity to kind of talk through that a little bit and make sure that they're able to hear. But there's also reasons why people may wear headphones as well or have other reasons. So being sensitive to that is important as well. I would say that's probably more of a small group conversation or one-on-one conversation as opposed to calling somebody out in a larger group forum for that. But I don't know if I'd necessarily see an issue without knowing more about the context of the situation.
No, I appreciate that perspective because it does really depend on what they're doing, right? If are they
Right.
doing something in a situation, is it a group situation where there's a lot of communication, then it really needs to be addressed, right? Because they could seem disconnected from that communication. However, is it an office where that person is designing flyers on Canva, and so it's okay if they're just listening to music while doing it, or maybe there's if there is a discussion around it, it's like maybe the agreement is just one headphone in, one headphone out, so that you can still hear if somebody's trying to get a hold of you. So it's all about that communication. I do appreciate that. One thing I want to touch on when you're talking about missed deadlines without communication, students students are often I've been told this by students, they often feel like they don't have a lot to offer an employer in an internship, which is the point. We know that's the point, is that they start to build some of those skills. But there is a little bit of a level of like, I don't know if I'm good enough. And so a lot of times when there's some sort of missed deadline without communication, and you sort of touched on this, Lisa, but maybe they didn't understand or they didn't get it done, and they're just kind of embarrassed to say something. And so that open communication about this is a learning atmosphere and we don't expect it to be perfect all the time, maybe you can break down some of those barriers. But thank you, Lisa, for speaking on behalf of Group 3 there.
No problem.
Last, we have Group 4. Anybody from Group 4 that wants to talk? Mary Beth, Megan, Charlie.
Yeah, I can do. We talked about the phone use between tasks. We said that, yeah, the assumption is that they don't seem engaged or interested in what they're doing. But I think it's also just kind of, we talked about it, something that they're used to. So kind of setting the precedent right from the very beginning, right when they join, of kind of tucking the phone away, keeping it out of sight, out of mind, but also leading by example of you're also not on your phone, and kind of trying to we would also be interacting with our coworkers in downtime if there is anything, but also relaying to them that if there is, if you are done with an assignment, please come and find us for the next assignment. Don't assume that there's nothing left for you. Like, feel comfortable to come and ask for the next thing to work on, kind of making that more comfortable transition for them to come and ask any questions. Anyone else can jump in on that too, because I'm sure I'm missing stuff.
I don't have anything to add. You did a better job than I would have done. Yay, go.
You guys want to talk about the second scenario?
I forget what it was. I'm looking through I lost track of the chat, but
it was the task.
Yeah.
Task completed, but not as expected.
I think we spent a long time on the first question and maybe didn't talk too much about that one.
Okay.
Megan, do you remember anything specific about that?
We kind of touched on it more as a learning experience more than anything. It was more of
like they're not there to complete work for us. So we don't have an expectation of like professional level. work. I think if they don't complete something as expected, it's kind of on us and how well we guided them. Was the task appropriate for their level of skills? Did we provide the right amount of support? Um, did we communicate along the way? We didn't get too deep into this though, but that's just what I'm
No,
thinking is I've seen kids not
Yeah.
I
complete
think you're hitting
tasks.
it on the nail on the head, though. I mean, so
Thanks.
Eli, you're
Well, we scratched the surface a little bit. Charlie works at Limo and was talking about, I don't know if at the end of their internship, they're going to be creating, connectors for us. And what we said was they don't have to. Being part of the experience is robust enough. And if they get to play around with CAD a little bit, wonderful. That's an additional benefit, but there's no expectation of output. And if a student is able to create something amazing, I mean, how cool is that? And if they're not, we understand that, what are you going to really do in 40 hours? When all of us onboarded onto our current jobs, our first week wasn't spent CADing stuff. It was probably like doing all the HR paperwork. And so we're accelerating their timelines a little bit. And so I think just having that understanding, which all of you clearly do, that we're here to give this young person exposure to the world in a really unique way.
you know,
Yeah, that's right, Eric. I intend to do, being the design engineering manager, having them exposed to the entire design process from customer's application all the way to the finished product delivery. You can't do it in 40 hours, it takes months, but exposure to those process steps will help them understand if this is something they want to do in the future.
and yeah, thank you so much for saying that because think about what a high school student knows about, say, manufacturer like Limo, right? Like they have no concept of what production, operations, what shipping looks like. Like there's just so many pieces to it. And so just opening their eyes to that, students don't know what they don't know, but they will know it or have a better idea of it once those in the know help them learn it. And that's what this is. This is exposing them to the opportunities available to them in Sonoma County, which is amazing because we want to keep them here in Sonoma County to join our workforce and be productive members of our society. So that in the internship, I love how this is wrapping up. The internship is a great way to do that, and we are so appreciative of all of you for helping kind of foster this next generation into the workforce. Every study on it shows that any sort of career connected learning in schools helps improve a student's graduation rate, their matriculation at college, even how much money they make once they are in that kind of career path. Like all of that is increased by some sort of career connected learning. And out of all the kind of different ways of doing some sort of career connected learning, internship is one of the best. It is their stepping foot on the work site. And so thank you all so much for being able to host these interns for this. As we wrap up, here you go. I'm going to just share my screen real quick. We wanted to just kind of touch on a few last things, next steps. If you have not signed that supervisor MOU, please do that. I think you already put a link in the chat, Jolene, but maybe if you could just put it again so it's kind of easy for everybody to grab. But if you have not done it, there is a link that Jolene will put into the chat for you to sign that supervisor MOU or supervisor agreement. If you have not already reached out to your interns, we've made that email connection. So we're kind of leaving it up to you to kind of start that conversation and start talking about schedules, start talking about the start date. If there, again, any challenges along the way, please reach out to us. Here's my email. And if you have not gotten the live scan and done your mandatory reporter training, please do that. You don't have to show us the mandatory reporter training, and I will automatically see the live scan once it goes through. It takes within about a 24-hour period. shows up on my end of the DOJ portal. And I will also send an email confirming to you individually once I see your results come through. I will let you know that everything went through successfully. Eli, you unmuted? Do you want to say something?
Like, share, follow. We have a very active and robust social media presence. We're going to be highlighting the stories of these young people who are on your sites. If you have an interest in being part of that storytelling, do not hesitate to reach out to us. We really want to elevate the student experience and share what you are all doing at your place of employment as well, and highlight the fact that you all said yes to this and opted in to creating an environment in Sonoma County that young people can see their futures in, like Brandon had mentioned. And so we want to celebrate the work you are all doing and the work that your interns will be doing as well. So this is a really easy way of being able to do that. And so you can see kind of how we've done that in the past if you haven't already followed us on one of these platforms, and continue to kind of follow the journey as well.
So with that, we'll wrap up. We'll stay on, the CTE Foundation staff will stay on just in case you have any additional questions that you want to ask. So other than that, though, if you have no questions, please feel free to take off, and thank you so much for your time today.